Today we're going to get into Chapter 11 and focus on retirement planning. So we were talking about trying to limit our risk with insurance. Now we'll get into limiting our risk for the future. Will we have something? What will we have saved up for a time when we are no longer going to work? So insurance, we're protecting what we have. Retirement, we're protecting what we may have down the line. So we want an accumulation of wealth so that we don't have to work our entire lives. And we have something there that we can enjoy our lives once we get to that point. So what factors do we have for our retirement savings? What expenses are we going to have? And what are we going to need to do now to get there? So the first thing, we got to project what our needs going to be. So what does life look like in the future? So if I want to have a nice life when I retire, what does that mean? What's a nice life? Do we want to have the same level of income that I have now? Do I want a comparable, within 20-25%? What is that? So what are our expenses going to be? How long is retirement going to last? And, we're kind of throwing darts at the wall. None of us know when our time is up. So how long we're going to need to draw off of retirement. And what type of return that we're going to get. Now, what type of return we're going to get then. So this can be difficult, especially depending upon how long you are from retirement. So what are our expenses now? How is our lifestyle going to change? Maybe we won't have a mortgage to pay off anymore. Maybe we want to factor in being able to take trips or whatever you consider enjoyment to pass your time then. And we've got to factor in what's inflation going to be. We're going to be stuck with that. Costs are going to continually rise. You got to figure out how long we're going to live for. And once again, what's our return going to be? We get a better return, we don't need as much. We're not going to get a good return, we got to save more. Once again, things we're not going to know. Well, and we focused on budgeting, within this semester, looking at, what our plans are and trying to factor in having a surplus. So what are our expenses now? Can we cut them so that we have a surplus and we can invest in our retirement? And we can start doing that as soon as we can. What stage are we in our career? What's our earning power now? What's our earning power going to be for the next several years? And then once again, what's the return we're going to get over time? So we got to project what life is. What's life costing now? What's life going to cost then? How long are we going to live? How long are we going to draw? And what type of return we're going to get now and when we draw. So what type of retirement plans do we have? What are our options? Well, you can set up a plan yourself. You can have a plan from your employer where they're making contributions and you're making contributions, or we can rely on government retirement. So if we're an individual, we can set up an IRA in which we have either a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. We can have various self-employed type accounts. a SEP plan, a simple plan, etc. And there can be some tax advantages to, once again, making contributions to these various plans. Self-employed plans or traditional plans, once again, would be a 4 AGI deduction on your personal tax return. So there's going to be different rules to all these various retirement plans. If we're going to be setting up ourselves, our options a traditional or a Roth IRA. A traditional IRA, you can see we can contribute until we're 70 and a half. We can create it until we're 70 and a half. But we can't draw out of it. You see either plan, we can't draw out of it until we're 59 and a half. If we draw out of it before then, we can be subject to a 10% tax penalty. Once we get to 70 and a half, we have to draw from a traditional IRA. There is no rule for a Roth IRA. Traditional IRA, once we start drawing off of it, say if we wait to 59 and a half, those drawings are going to be taxable. Roth IRA, anything we withdraw it after that age set is going to be tax-free. So the main difference between the two plans is traditional IRA, what I contribute now, I can deduct, but then I'm going to have to pay tax in the long run. Whereas a Roth IRA, I get no deduction, but I get no tax then once I start drawing out of the plan. So if we can think to the future, we're not worried about having a tax deduction now. We can grow it for a lot of years. We can get all that growth tax-free if we contribute to a Roth. From our employer, we can have various types of defined contribution plans, which basically they're setting up what they're guaranteeing, what they're going to put into it. So that contribution is set, it's defined. You know, generally a percentage of salary, or they can set it up as a certain dollar amount. Here's what we're contributing, here's what you're contributing, and possibly matching, or maybe they'll just match your contributions up to a certain percentage. Whereas a defined benefit plan, that sets up what you're going to withdraw then in the future. So as long as you work for a certain number of years, you know, meet whatever is defined in the plan, it sets up what you're going to get, what that benefit is going to be in the long run. Many government type jobs are set up as a defined benefit. In the private sector, we'd see more defined contribution plans as far as what they're putting in, and then trying to encourage you to match that. The other retirement from the government would be Social Security. So the Social Security Act was passed back in 1935 to provide for people once they get to a certain age. And then that's being paid into through the FICA withholdings from your wages. The FICA that's matched by your employers are all going into Social Security. We've got various risks to all these retirement plans. We've got the risk that our employer is going to go into default. And then how are they going to be able to pay us? We've got the risk of inflation. Is inflation going up at hopefully less of a rate than the return that we're getting for our contributions? And then we've got the risk of what's going into it investment-wise and what's happening to that. Market's up, we're good. But if we're going through a recession, which a lot of people are saying, you know, can happen in the near future, our investments are going down. That's not going to help our retirement. So we've got various sources for getting into a retirement plan. The moral of the story here, like I mentioned throughout the course, start saving now. however that is. Set yourself up a Roth, set yourself up a traditional IRA, set yourself up a SEP. Whatever it is, I don't care, just do it. And get in there as soon as you can. We can also factor in Social Security. Hopefully Social Security is still going to be around once we all get to retirement, and then that can offset some of the risks that we have about what's going to happen to our retirement plans and how much we're going to have, and not necessarily have to save it all ourselves. And then all these retirement plans have different rules. Keep on those rules and what you can and cannot do. Estate planning, we got to protect our assets when we're gone. So once we die, setting up your estate, creating ways to protect what you're leaving behind. So it's we got some explanation in the chapter as far as the various types of wills, setting up a written document saying, here's what's going to happen to my stuff. So my money and my assets, here's what to do with it. If you do not have a will, you could be at risk of then the government taking control and your wishes not going through. And they provided an example in the chapter here, a will going back all the way to 1616. So estate planning has been around forever. So a will, you need a witness. You need to sign it to prove that it's you and what you wanted. The probate process happens after you die. It's essentially making sure that all the debts that you are leaving behind are paid, and then any remaining assets can be distributed to your heirs. We've got various different legal things that you can pursue, such as a power of attorney for making those financial, legal, and medical decisions as if something happens to you. And then you can set up trusts. A trust is another legal form as far as protecting your assets. You can set it up revocable or irrevocable, which basically I can change it or I can't. And this can be set up if you necessarily don't want all your money to go to a certain source, and then you have a trustee in charge of divvying out the assets maybe on a year-to-year basis, depending upon what assets you have that are generating income and bringing that income into the trust. But I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer and necessarily have all the knowledge on those things. Another thing we can worry about then would be our estate and what happens to our estate depending upon the tax system at the time. So you can try and plan ahead. As long as your estate is under like 5.3 million, this is something we don't have to worry about. And this is another thing that's increased through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So I believe it's even doubled or quadrupled going forward, at least for the next handful of years. So most of us not going to be affected by having to pay an estate tax if you have a very large pile of assets getting into the multi-million dollars. Hire a lawyer and do some good estate planning. Get a hold of a CPA to help you with this process as well. So that's the extent. I'm not going to go into all the specifics dealing with the estate tax. Just do the proper planning. If you need to, make sure you have a will so that all your stuff is protected, or at least all your stuff goes where you want it to. And that is chapter 11. Enjoy the rest of your day.